Thank you, Mark, and thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate your support, the amount of work that you've put into this for the planet, and thank you. I'm just going to say a few little brief words. I'm running for the Greens because they're the only party that has both a practical and a visionary plan for BC. They believe that instead of spending tens of billions of your hard-earned tax dollars on environmentally destructive mega projects that show a fundamental disrespect for First Nations and are saddling our grandchildren with huge amounts of debt, the Greens believe that that money should be coming instead into your communities all over BC, to fund sustainable jobs and projects to fight climate change, to bring just transition programs for workers who are leaving sunset industries, to fund affordable housing, childcare, to fight child poverty. 1 in every 5, 20% of BC kids still go to bed hungry. They're living under the poverty level, and that hasn't changed in decades. We need to repair habitat destruction for salmon and other wildlife to get our salmon runs plentiful again, and to sequester carbon in habitat restoration in wetlands and forests. Only the Green Party puts you ahead of multinational corporations. I used to be a BC NDP supporter, as most of you know, for 45 years. I'm a loyal person, but when John Horgan broke every major environmental promise that he made on the campaign trail, I felt utterly betrayed. Hear, hear. As a friend of mine has so eloquently put it, a vote for the NDP now is an endorsement of those lies and those destructive environmental decisions that the NDP have made in the 40 months that they have been in power. Under Mr. Horgan, 1 million acres of old growth have been lost. Our greenhouse gases are rising, and environmental destruction all over the province is continuing unabated. We don't have the Environmental Species at Risk Act that he promised us. And as Sonia said, there was very little attempt to move it forward. And I would suggest to you that if you want to keep logging old growth and destroying salmon habitat, you certainly don't want an Endangered Species Act to get in the way of that. I've tried to vote strategically in the past, but I'm done with voting to prevent what I'm afraid might happen or what I'm afraid might get. We have the tremendous challenge of climate change ahead of us. It's coming towards us like a tsunami. We haven't seen the worst of it yet. People who are living near the equator are really beginning to see the full effects of it, with floods and droughts and famine that are displacing millions of people and turning them into desperate refugees. But the permafrost is now beginning to melt and letting go of huge amounts of carbon. The old growth that we're logging is letting huge amounts of carbon back into the atmosphere. So we are going to see these effects much more strongly and very soon. So we need to vote now, not for what we're afraid we're going to get, but to vote for what we want, what we need. We need strong green voices in the face of the crises that we're facing, and it is an emergency. A vote for Greens is a message to politicians that we're worried. It's a vote for the world that we want, the world we want for our children and our grandchildren and future generations. So I'm asking you to vote with your heart and vote Green. And I want to talk about some of the priorities that Sonia has outlined for the next big BC Green caucus when the government gets up and running. One of her main priorities, the priorities of the Green Party, is going to be to help small business and the tourism sector survive the winter. They want to bring in a rent subsidy program and grants to urgently support small tourism operators, $300 million over the next 6 months. And when we think about the part that small business and tourism plays in our everyday lives, the little cafe we always meet our friends in, the special store where we can get the shoes we like or the socks we need, or that fantastic loaf of bread. These places and businesses are part of our community, and if we lose them to COVID, it's going to be a real loss to our communities and to our way of life. So we really need to support small business, and tourism is one of the main drivers of the BC economy. It's billions of dollars, and in many respects it's sustainable. And another way that we can support our tourism sector is to support our environment, because people are not going to come to BC to look at old growth stumps and kayak past clear cuts. Those old growth trees are worth more now standing to big tree tourism than they are lying on the ground. And the Green Party wants to provide immediate action on housing affordability and inequality. They want to help those who are paying more than 30% of their income in rent with a new grant. And that's going to make a huge difference, because every community activist that you talk to tells you that the best way to make secure, safe, and happy communities is with a housing first approach, where everybody, the emphasis on everybody getting a place where they can have a roof over their head at night. And when we focus on that, a lot of the other concerns and challenges that we're facing, they tend to be dampened down, because when people have a home over their house, it's easier to deal with the challenges of addiction or mental health issues. And a lot of the challenges that families face are exacerbated by the fact that they may not have enough money to pay the rent. They're worried about working 2 or 3 jobs. They're cold because they can't afford the heat. Their kids are hungry. So we really need to support families with a housing first policy. And the third thing that your Green Caucus is going to really work on when they get back into Victoria is protecting the last remaining old-growth forests from logging and taking back control of our forest industry to create sustainable local jobs and share the wealth. We need tenure reform so that foresters can go back to First Nations and communities, and that we need to protect our watershed forests and reform our tenure system, so that retraining workers who are losing jobs. Right now we're losing 6 jobs every day in BC. We've lost 6 jobs in forestry every day for the last decade, even as we chop down as much old growth as we possibly can. So clearly we need a new sustainable holistic model for our forests, and the Green Party is going to make that a priority. And the Green Party is going to stand up for real solutions in healthcare with accessible mental health services, ending the practice of public money going to for-profit seniors care. Yeah, they pledged $1 billion for mental health, such as loneliness strategies for seniors, community outreach for homeless people, and programs for youth who are suffering from anxiety and depression. And that's going to be $1 billion. And they're also going to be working on getting rid of the for-profit seniors portion, so that our tax dollars are going to fund care hours for our residents. They're not going into the pockets of private facilities. And this is really critical. Yeah. Our seniors are not commodities. They are our mothers and our fathers and our husbands and our wives and our aunts. And we need to show them the respect that they deserve. And finally, the last priority is going to be stopping the subsidies for fossil fuel and fracking companies. And establishing a clean job strategy that's going to offer a just transition for workers in oil and gas sector, guaranteeing them a job in the clean economy, the new economy, The new economy is trillions of dollars in renewable energy technology and millions of jobs. Yeah. And local jobs too. And there's going to be $1 billion strategic investment for supporting business innovations that support the shift to zero carbon economy. Jobs restoring natural carbon sinks like wetlands, planting trees, repairing habitat, preparing communities for climate change, infrastructure, and preventing wildfires and whatnot. So I am very happy to be a part of the initiative that's placing these as priorities for British Columbians, placing British Columbians before multinational corporations. And I thank you all for your support for this philosophy and for this initiative for our planet and our children and generations yet unborn. And I thank you for coming out today and showing your support. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Gillian.